Princess Anne has sustained minor injuries and concussion following an incident.
Princess Anne is in hospital with concussion tonight after apparently being injured by a horse.
The diner lights buzzed faintly, casting a soft glow over the worn-out leather booths. The air smelled of coffee and warm pancakes. It was just another ordinary evening at Manny's Diner, until it wasn't. The door jingled and the room froze. In walked Princess Anne. Let us dive into this extraordinary night and uncover the moment that left every soul in Manny's Diner questioning what they had just witnessed. A royal glimmer in Manny's glow. The air around Elm Street had that crisp, cold edge of early winter, with faint stars twinkling up above like someone scattered tiny diamonds across the sky. On the corner, Manny's Diner gave off its usual cozy glow, the kind that made you feel warm just looking at it. Inside, life was as it always was. Familiar, safe, predictable. But in the shadows beyond Manny's glow, something moved, silent, unseen, waiting. Ethan, a 15-year-old with a mop of messy brown hair and a hoodie too big for him, sat by the fogged-up window. His finger traced patterns in the condensation as his thoughts wandered. Lately, home hadn't been much of a haven. His mom worked long hours at the hospital, and his dad had been gone so long it was more like he was a ghost than a memory. Money was tight too. His dreams of getting a new phone or even just a pair of sneakers without holes? Pretty much just that, dreams. But here, in this little diner, Ethan could almost forget. Almost. Manny's was alive with its usual characters. By the jukebox, a group of retirees laughed so loudly you could practically feel their joy. Over in the corner, a couple shared a milkshake, sneaking glances at each other like they were in some old movie. Rosa, the waitress with her unstoppable energy and warm smile, weaved through tables like she was dancing. Behind the counter, Manny himself, a big guy with a bigger mustache, worked the griddle like an artist with a canvas. Pancakes flipped, coffee poured, life went on. The first sign that this wasn't just any night was the car. It wasn't the kind of car you'd expect to see in a place like this. A sleek, shiny black sedan rolled up outside, its polished surface gleaming under the streetlights. Conversations dipped. Eyes turned toward the window. Who drives a car like that here? People muttered guesses under their breath, curiosity buzzing through the room like static electricity. The car door opened, and out stepped someone who didn't belong. At least not here. She moved with a grace that made everyone stop what they were doing. She wore a perfectly tailored navy coat, a silk scarf draped just so, and gloves that screamed classy without trying too hard. Her every step, quiet and sure, felt deliberate, like she owned the ground she walked on. And then she stepped into the glow spilling out from the diner's windows. For a moment, the whole diner seemed to hold its breath. Forks froze midair. Rosa stopped mid-step. Even the jukebox seemed to hush itself. The bell over the door jingled as she pushed it open and stepped inside, her gaze sweeping the room. She smiled, not the stiff kind you'd expect from someone with her status, but warm, genuine, a smile that made you feel like she saw you. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It wasn't every day royalty wandered into a place like Manny's, but there she was, as real as the pancakes on Manny's griddle. The woman didn't seem fazed by the stunned silence. She walked over to the counter, pulled off her gloves, and tucked them into her pocket. Rosa finally snapped out of her trance, grabbing a menu and stepping forward, her usual confidence a little shaken. But the woman waved it off, her smile widening as she glanced at the specials board. It was as if she belonged there, in this tiny diner on a quiet street, like she wasn't one of the most recognizable figures in the world. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her. It wasn't just that she was famous, it was something else, something calming about the way she carried herself. He couldn't help but wonder why she was there. What could bring someone like her to a place like this? As people slowly started to remember how to move and talk again, whispers filled the room. Retirees by the jukebox nudged each other, wide-eyed. The couple in the corner leaned closer together, their milkshake moment forgotten. Manny, still holding a spatula, stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. Then, just like that, the spell broke. Life in the diner restarted, though it wasn't quite the same. Her presence had shifted something,
like she'd brought a piece of another world with her and sprinkled it across Manny's like powdered sugar on pancakes. And as she sat down, smiling and chatting as if she were just another customer, the diner's magic became something else entirely. A story, one nobody would forget. The diner's usual rhythm slowly crept back, though now it carried an undercurrent of excitement. The retirees leaned closer together, trading whispered guesses about why she might be here. Perhaps a secret meeting, one suggested, his voice low but filled with awe. Another countered with a more outlandish theory. Maybe she was scouting for a film. The young couple in the corner barely touched their milkshake now, their conversation centered on the unexpected guest. They kept sneaking glances in her direction, their curiosity almost palpable. Rosa, ever the professional, approached with a hesitant smile, her usual confident stride tempered by the weight of the moment. She carried a notepad, though it was clear she was unsure if she'd actually need it. The woman glanced up, her expression open and inviting, as though Rosa were an old friend rather than a stranger. With a quick exchange that left Rosa beaming, she placed her order. Whatever she said, it put the waitress at ease, and Rosa returned to the counter with a spring in her step. Manny, still standing by the griddle, finally seemed to snap out of his trance. He adjusted his chef's hat, a habit of his when he felt the need to compose himself, and set to work preparing the order. The sight of him moving with his usual precision seemed to reassure the other patrons, grounding them in the familiar routine of the diner. Yet, every now and then, Manny's gaze would flicker toward her, his expression a mix of disbelief and pride. Ethan continued to watch from his spot by the window, his thoughts racing. He had read about her in school, seen her face on television, but seeing her here, in the flesh, was something else entirely. She seemed so normal. Not in the way she looked or moved, those were undeniably elegant, but in the way she interacted with the world around her. There was no air of superiority, no expectation that the diner would bow to her presence. Instead, she blended in, as though she belonged in this little corner of the world. As Anne left, the diner slowly came back to life, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. A diner's tale. As the evening wore on, the initial shock of her arrival gave way to a quieter sense of wonder. People began to settle back into their seats, their conversations gradually returning to their original topics, though now interspersed with the occasional glance toward the counter where Anne sat. The retirees resumed their animated discussions, though their laughter now carried a certain reverence. The young couple eventually finished their milkshake, their hands brushing as they reached for the check, their shared excitement evident in their shy smiles. Anne, for her part, seemed perfectly at ease. She sipped her coffee, her gaze occasionally drifting to the window as though she were taking in the world outside. When Manny brought her meal, she thanked him with that same warm smile, and for a moment, the burly chef looked almost bashful. The sight drew a few chuckles from the regulars, the tension in the room easing further. Ethan found himself wondering what it must be like to live a life like hers. To have the world recognize you wherever you went, to carry the weight of expectation and duty. He couldn't imagine it. His own life felt heavy enough, with its struggles and uncertainties. Yet, watching Anne, he couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, even someone like her had moments of escape. Perhaps this diner, with its simple charm and unassuming patrons, was one of those moments. The night stretched on, the diner's warm glow spilling out onto the quiet street. Anne's presence remained a subtle hum in the background, a reminder of the extraordinary in the midst of the ordinary. By the time she rose to leave, the atmosphere had shifted once more. The initial shock and awe had given way to a quiet respect, an unspoken understanding that this night was something special. As she stepped outside, the bell above the door jingling softly in her wake, the patrons of Manny's watched her go. The sleek black sedan was still parked at the curb, its polished surface gleaming under the streetlights. Anne paused for a moment, glancing back at the diner, her expression thoughtful. Then, with a small, almost imperceptible nod, she climbed into the car and it disappeared into the night. Inside, the diner slowly came back to life. Conversations resumed, laughter bubbled up, and the jukebox began to play again. Yet, there was a lingering sense of something more, a shared memory that bound everyone in that room together. For Ethan, it was a night he'd carry with him, a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, something magical could happen. And as he turned back to the window, his finger tracing patterns in the condensation once more, he found himself smiling, the weight on his shoulders feeling just a little bit lighter. A cozy little diner, the kind with sticky booths and a warm smell of pancakes wafting through the air. It was a regular evening, nothing out of the ordinary, until the door swung open. In walked someone who seemed so familiar, yet so out of place in this small-town setting. It was none other than Princess Anne herself. Imagine that, a royal in your neighborhood hangout. Her entrance wasn't flashy. No entourage, no cameras. She stepped in like she'd been there 100 times before, her posture upright, her expression calm yet friendly. It was as if she was simply dropping by an old friend's house. Her presence, though, was magnetic. Conversations faltered, forks paused mid-air, and even the old jukebox in the corner seemed to go quiet for a moment. Rosa, the waitress who had been weaving through tables with her usual energy, was the first to snap out of the stunned silence. She nearly toppled a tray of coffee mugs but managed to steady herself just in time. Her face lit up with a mix of shock and excitement as she hurried over to greet the unexpected guest. Princess Anne extended her hand, gloved and elegant, with a warmth that immediately put Rosa at ease. It wasn't just a handshake, it was a connection, a gesture that said, "I see you." Anne's voice was calm but carried authority, a mix of kindness and confidence. She explained she'd heard the diner was the heart of the community and thought she'd stop by. Can you imagine? The heart of the community. Manny, the diner's owner, came rushing from behind the counter, wiping his hands on his apron, clearly trying to keep it together. He stammered out a welcome, his voice trembling with awe. Anne smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that made everyone in the room feel like they were part of something extraordinary. She casually mentioned she'd heard the pancakes here were the stuff of legends and decided to test the rumors herself. The way she said it, you could tell she wasn't here for fanfare. She was here for pancakes and people. Taking a seat at the counter, she waved off the menu Rosa tried to hand her. "Pick something for me," she said, her tone light but firm. And then, in the most unexpected twist, she added, "And if it's all right, I'd like to take care of everyone's meals tonight." You could have heard a pin drop. The room froze, the weight of her words sinking in. Covering everyone's meals? That wasn't just generous, it was extraordinary. Rosa's eyes widened, and for once, she was at a loss for words. Manny stepped in, nodding vigorously, barely managing to stammer out a thank you. The diners, a mix of families, retirees, and a few solo regulars, were equally stunned. Whispers filled the room as people tried to process what had just happened. Anne's gesture wasn't about showing off. It was about giving back. It was a quiet acknowledgement of what this little diner meant to the people who came here. As the evening unfolded, Anne made her way around the diner, chatting with patrons as though she were an old friend. At a corner booth, she laughed softly at a group of retirees' stories about her mother. She crouched beside a little girl drawing with crayons, praising her sketch of the diner and its glowing neon sign. The girl's face lit up, her shyness melting away under Anne's encouragement. The princess's attention was genuine, her compliments heartfelt. Ethan sat quietly, replaying the night in his mind, not knowing it was only the start of something bigger. The princess and the pancakes. And then there was Ethan sitting quietly in his usual booth. He was one of those people who observed more than he spoke, taking in the world with thoughtful eyes. Anne noticed him and, in a move that stunned him to his core, asked if she could join him. She didn't make it a big deal, just pulled up a seat as if they were old acquaintances. Ethan's heart raced as he nodded, and they sat there, sharing a quiet moment that felt surreal. The night carried on with a hum of energy that was different from any other night at the diner. It wasn't just about the free meals. It was about the way Anne's presence had transformed the ordinary into something magical. Her laughter mingled with the clatter of dishes. Her words carried weight yet felt light, and her kindness left an imprint that wouldn't fade anytime soon. When she finally stood to leave, the entire diner seemed to hold its breath. She thanked Manny and Rosa, her sincerity shining through every word. And as she stepped out into the cool night air, the door swinging shut behind her, it felt like the diner itself exhaled, settling back into its usual rhythm, but forever changed by the evening's events.
Back in their booths and seats, people began to talk, their voices tinged with wonder. They spoke about her warmth, her generosity, the way she'd made everyone feel seen and valued. And as they shared their stories, one thing became clear. This was a night they'd tell their children about. A story that would become part of the diner's history. That's the thing about moments like these. They start small, like a ripple, but they grow, touching everyone they meet. And in a little diner that smelled like pancakes and carried the hum of community, Princess Anne created a ripple that would last for years to come. The details of that night lingered in the minds of everyone who was there. The old jukebox, silent for much of the night, seemed to hum softly as if remembering the joy it witnessed. Plates of pancakes, syrup glistening under the diner's warm lights, were savored with an added sweetness of gratitude. Rosa and Manny found themselves recounting every detail to anyone who would listen, their voices brimming with pride and wonder. Even the little girl with her crayons, her name was Lily, as it turned out, kept her drawing tucked safely in her room, a cherished memory she would carry into adulthood. Anne's simple words to her about having a gift and keeping at it became a mantra Lily would repeat in the years to come. That single interaction lit a spark in her that no one could extinguish. Ethan, too, found himself reflecting on that quiet moment he shared with Anne. It wasn't just the surprise of having a royal at his table, it was the way she listened, really listened, as though his thoughts and feelings mattered. It wasn't a grand gesture or a dramatic event, but it left a mark on him. He carried that moment like a small glowing ember, a reminder of connection and the unexpected kindness of a stranger. The diner itself became something of a legend. Travelers passing through town would stop by, hoping to catch a glimpse of the magic people spoke about. Some would sit at the counter, imagining Anne's calm demeanor and sparkling smile as she took her seat. Others would ask Manny or Rosa to recount the story again, hanging on every word as if it were a fairy tale. And in a way, it was. A modern-day tale of kindness and humanity in a world that often feels too busy for such things. Years passed, but the memory of that night didn't fade. It became a part of the diner's identity, woven into the fabric of its existence. People who had been there carried it with them, sharing it with others, spreading the ripple further. And while the pancakes remained legendary, it was the spirit of that one extraordinary night that truly made the diner special. The lesson from that evening was clear. You never know how much a simple act of kindness can mean to someone. It doesn't have to be grand or complicated. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting down, listening, and being present. Princess Anne showed that even in the most unexpected places, there is room for grace and generosity. And in a small diner that smelled like pancakes and felt like home, she left behind a legacy of love and humanity that would endure for generations. On a cool evening, the usual hum of Manny's Diner seemed to carry an extra spark. A small cozy spot with its retro booths and warm pancakes, Manny's was a place for the regulars, truck drivers, retirees, and the occasional wandering family. But this night was different. Heads turned, whispers buzzed, and then, there she was, Princess Anne, casually stepping into the diner as if it were the most natural thing in the world. No grand entrance, no entourage, just her. The door jingled shut behind her, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Anne scanned the space with a subtle grace, a slight smile playing on her lips. Spotting an empty booth near the window, she moved with purpose, only to pause beside a young man sitting alone. Without a word, she gestured to the empty seat across from him, and he nodded, wide-eyed. Anne slid into the booth, her posture impeccable but welcoming. What secrets could Princess Anne be chasing in a humble diner? What's your take on her unspoken agenda? Share your thoughts in the comments, like, and subscribe.